Something happened last night while you were sleeping, while the world was silent, while your eyes were closed and your mind was resting. God was moving, not somewhere far away, not in some distant cathedral, not over another nation or another people, over you, right there, in the room where you lay, right there above the ceiling of your home, right there where no camera could capture it, where no human eye could witness it. Heaven opened, and something was released into your life that you have not yet seen, that you have not yet felt, that you have not yet understood. And God said to me, tell them what happened. Tell them they are not the same person who went to sleep last night. Because, beloved, there are moments in the Spirit that do not announce themselves with thunder. There are moments when God moves so quietly, so sovereignly, so precisely, that the person receiving the miracle does not even know they have been touched, until the day comes when everything in their life begins to change and they cannot explain why. That day is coming for you. I want you to open your heart right now. I want you to receive what heaven has already released. Because what God did last night was not an accident. It was not coincidence. It was an appointment written in eternity with your name on it. You did not come here today by chance. You were led here because God wants you to know what happened and what it means for the rest of your life. While you were sleeping last night, God was not sleeping. While your body was resting, while your mind had gone quiet, while the burdens of the day had finally released their grip on your shoulders, the God of heaven and earth, the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps, the one who holds every star in its place and every ocean within its boundary, he was moving deliberately, precisely, purposefully. And the address he was moving toward was not a palace. It was not a temple built with human hands. It was the place where you lay your head. I need you to understand something about the nature of God that religion has often robbed from us. We have been trained to believe that God only moves when we are active, when we are praying loudly, when we are fasting intensely, when we are performing with great effort and great discipline. And while prayer matters, while fasting is holy, while seeking God is always right, there's a dimension of divine activity that has nothing to do with your performance. There is a realm of God's working that is entirely dependent on His initiative, His sovereignty, His love, and not on the worthiness of the vessel He has chosen to visit. Think about this. When God made His covenant with Abraham, He caused a deep sleep to fall upon him. Abraham did not negotiate the terms. Abraham did not prepare himself sufficiently. Abraham did not earn the moment through years of spiritual discipline alone. God waited until Abraham was completely still, completely surrendered to unconsciousness. And then He passed between the pieces. Then He sealed the covenant. Then He did the work that would alter the course of human history. Why? Because God wanted Abraham to know, and He wants you to know, that the covenant was never carried by human strength. It was always carried by divine faithfulness. When Jacob laid his head on a stone in the wilderness, alone, exhausted, displaced, running from the consequences of his own mistakes, he did not deserve a visitation. By every human standard, Jacob was not in the right posture for a heavenly encounter. He had deceived his father. He had stolen his brother's blessing. He was sleeping in the dirt with a rock beneath his head, and yet heaven opened, and yet the angels were ascending and descending. And yet God stood at the top of that ladder and spoke words of promise and destiny and covenant over a man who had done nothing to deserve it. Jacob woke up and said, "Surely God was in this place and I did not know it." Beloved, that is the word for someone right now. Surely God was in your place last night and you did not know it. This is the shocking reality that God wants to awaken you to this morning. Heaven does not wait for perfect conditions. Heaven does not wait for you to have your life completely together, for your faith to be completely strong, for your prayers to be completely polished. Heaven moves on the basis of God's eternal purpose. And when God has decided that it is your moment, not even your weakness can stop Him. Not even your unawareness can hinder Him. Not even your sleep can delay. what He has already determined to release into your life. I have seen this in my own experience of ministry across more than 6 decades. I have prayed with people who came to receive a miracle, not even fully believing they would receive one. And the miracle came anyway, because God had already decided. I have stood beside hospital beds where the family had given up hope, and heaven had not given up, because God was already working in the night hours that the doctors could not see and the instruments could not measure. The work of God in the hidden hours, in the sleeping hours, in the silent hours, is often the most powerful work He does, because it is entirely His own. There is a biological reality that even science is beginning to understand, that the body does its deepest work of healing and restoration, not during the active hours of the day, but during the hours of deep sleep. The cells regenerate, the immune system strengthens, the brain processes and consolidates and repairs. God built this into the human body as a natural testimony of a spiritual truth, that some of the most profound work of restoration happens when you are not even conscious of it happening. How much more then does the God who created that biology, the God who designed that process of nighttime renewal, how much more does He work in the spiritual dimension of your life during the hours when you have surrendered to rest? He is not limited to your waking moments. He is not confined to the hours when you are aware and active and striving. He moves through the night with the same power, the same intention, the same love that He carries in every other moment. And last night He moved through your night with a specific assignment, a specific purpose, a specific word over your life that has not yet fully surfaced into your conscious understanding. What happened last night was not random. It was not incidental. Heaven does not make unscheduled visits. When God moves over our life in the stillness of the night, it is because something has been written in eternity that must now begin to manifest in time. And the sleeping hours are often the threshold through which the eternal crosses into the natural. You woke up this morning feeling like another ordinary day had begun. There is a moment in the life of Jacob that most people rush past too quickly. He had just awakened from the most supernatural sleep any human being had ever experienced. He had seen the open heaven. He had witnessed the ladder. He had heard the voice of God speaking covenant and destiny and promise over his life. And when he opened his eyes and looked around, he was still in the same wilderness. The stone was still beneath his head. The ground was still hard beneath his body. His circumstances had not visibly changed. His brother was still angry. His future was still uncertain. His past was still complicated. But something was different. Something had happened to Jacob in that night that Jacob himself could not fully articulate. He could not point to his hands and show you where he had been touched. He could not open his chest and reveal the seal that had been placed upon his spirit. But the enemy of his soul, the forces that had been assigned against his destiny, they already knew. They could already see what Jacob had not yet discovered about himself. They could already read the mark of heaven that had been placed upon his life while he was completely unaware of it. This is the reality I want you to sit with right now. There is something on your life that others in the spiritual realm can see before you can see it yourself. We live in a culture that demands visible evidence before it will agree to believe. We want to see the bank account change before we believe God has touched our finances. We want to see the doctor's report reverse before we believe God has moved in our body. We want to see the relationship restore before we believe God has spoken over our family. And I understand this. I understand the human need for tangible confirmation, because we are physical beings living in a physical world, and our senses were designed to process physical reality. But beloved, there is a dimension of God's activity that precedes physical evidence by a season. And that season is not a season of delay, it is a season of establishment. When God marks a life, He does not always announce it with immediate visible signs. He does not always send a burning bush or a pillar of fire or a parting sea. Sometimes, often, He moves quietly. He moves in the hidden place. He moves in the night season. And the mark he places is so deep, so permanent, so woven into the fabric of your spiritual identity that it cannot be removed by circumstances. It cannot be cancelled by opposition. It cannot be stolen by the enemy, because it was not placed on the surface where enemies can reach it. It was placed in the depths of your spirit where only God himself has access. The Apostle Paul understood this. When he wrote to the church at Ephesus and spoke of being sealed with the Holy Spirit of promise, he was not describing a temporary experience. He was not describing a feeling that comes and goes with the strength of one's faith on a given morning. He was describing a divine act of marking, a sovereign transaction that God initiates, God completes, and God guarantees. And the seal belongs to God, not to the one who carries it. The seal cannot be broken from the outside because it was applied from the inside, from the throne room of heaven itself, pressed into the spirit of a chosen vessel by the finger of the living God. I want you to think about what this means for your life right now. Right now, in this season, with everything you are facing and everything you are carrying. You may feel unmarked, you may feel ordinary. You may look at your life and see nothing that distinguishes you as someone heaven has specifically visited and specifically chosen and specifically sealed. You may feel like the wilderness is all there is, like the hard ground and the stone pillow are your only reality. And the open heaven you read about in the Bible belongs to someone else, someone more qualified, someone more deserving, someone with a cleaner history and a stronger faith and a more impressive testimony. But God is not looking at what you see when you look at yourself. God is looking at what he placed inside you before the foundations of the world were laid. God is looking at the assignment he wrote over your life before your mother knew your name. God is looking at the covenant he established over your bloodline in the secret council of eternity. And when he looks at you, he does not see your failures first. He does not see your doubts first. He does not see your weakness first. He sees the mark. He sees the seal. He sees the thing he put there, and it is still there, because God does not place marks that time can erase. The enemy knows this about you, which is why the warfare against your life has sometimes felt disproportionate to who you think you are. You have looked at the level of opposition and wondered, why is this happening to me? Why does it feel like so much is working against me when I am just an ordinary person trying to live an ordinary life? And the answer, beloved, is that you were never as ordinary as you believed. The warfare is disproportionate because the assignment is significant. And the enemy read the mark on your life long before he discovered it was there. Jacob woke up and named the place Bethel, the house of God. He woke up and declared that heaven had been present in the very place he thought was just wilderness. There is something the modern church has almost completely forgotten. We have become so accustomed to noise, so trained by the culture of spectacle and sensation and visible demonstration, that we have quietly, almost unconsciously, begun to measure the presence of God by the level of sound that accompanies it. We have come to expect that when God is truly moving, there will be visible signs. There will be trembling. There will be falling. There will be tears and shouting and the kind of atmospheric electricity that makes the hair on your arm stand up and the emotion in your chest rise beyond what words can contain. And I do not deny these experiences. I have lived them. I have witnessed them. I have stood in rooms where the manifest presence of God was so thick and so undeniable that grown men fell to the ground without anyone touching them. But I have also learned, across more than 60 years of walking with God and shepherding his people, that the most permanent work God ever does in a human life is not always the loudest work he does. Elijah understood this in a way that almost broke him before it healed him. He had just come through the most dramatic public display of divine power that any prophet had ever witnessed. Fire had fallen from heaven. Prophets of Baal had been silenced. The impossible had happened in front of thousands of witnesses on Mount Carmel, and yet Elijah ran. He collapsed under a juniper tree in the wilderness and told God he wanted to die. And God, in his infinite wisdom and his perfect understanding of what his servant needed, did not respond with more fire. He did not respond with more spectacle. He did not send another earthquake or another visible demonstration of power to restore the broken prophet. He sent an angel with bread. He let Elijah sleep. He let him eat again. He let him travel 40 days to Horeb. And when Elijah arrived at the mountain and stood in the mouth of the cave, the great wind came, and God was not in the wind. The earthquake came, and God was not in the earthquake. The fire came, and God was not in the fire. And then, after all the noise, after all the force, after all the power, there was a still small voice. And that voice, that quiet, unhurried, unspectacular, almost imperceptible voice, did more for Elijah in one moment than the fire on Carmel had done, because the fire on Carmel was for the crowd. But the still small voice was for the man. The public miracle was for the nation's faith. But the quiet word in the cave was for the prophet's soul. And this is the distinction that God wants you to understand about what happened in your life last night. The work he did was not for an audience. It was not designed to be witnessed or verified or applauded. It was done in the silence because it was done entirely for you. There's a kind of divine surgery that can only be performed when everything is still. A surgeon does not operate on a patient who is moving. The precision required for deep work demands complete stillness. And God, who is the greatest surgeon of the human soul, does his deepest and most precise work in the hours when you are completely surrendered to rest. In the silence of last night, when no one was watching and nothing was being recorded, and there was no atmosphere of corporate worship to carry the moment, God reached into the interior of your life and made an adjustment that the noise of your days would never have permitted him to make. He touched something that had been locked. He moved something that had been immovable. He spoke into a place that the voices of the day, the voices of fear, the voices of doubt, the voices of pressure and striving and human opinion had filled with so much sound that his own voice could not find an opening. This is why the silence is not emptiness. This is why the quiet season is not absence. This is why the night, the dark, the still, the unspectacular night is not a sign that God has withdrawn or forgotten or grown indifferent to your situation. The silence is often the sound of God working at a depth that noise cannot reach. Think about the most significant structural changes that happen in the natural world. The deepest geological shifts do not announce themselves in advance. The most profound changes in the ocean floor happen miles beneath the surface where no human eye can observe them. The growth of a tree happens not in the visible stretching of its branches alone, but in the invisible deepening of its roots. In the darkness of the soil, in the silence beneath the surface, in the place where no one watches and no one measures and no one celebrates because no one even knows it is happening. And yet, when the storm comes, and the storm always comes, it is not the visible branches that determine whether the tree survives. It is the invisible roots. It is the work that was done in the silence. God is building something in you that the noise of your life would destroy if he allowed it to continue unchecked. And so he waits. He waits for the moment when the world goes quiet, when your striving stops, when your performance finally rests. And in that moment, he goes to work in the deepest places of your being with a precision and a tenderness and a purposefulness that only he is capable of. What shocks people is not always the thunder. What changes people, what truly, permanently, irrevocably changes them at the level of their identity and their destiny and their relationship with God, is often something they cannot immediately name or describe or show to another human being. It is something they carry quietly, something they know in their spirit before they can articulate it with their mind, something that settles in them like a foundation being laid in the earth, invisible from the surface, but permanent beyond anything the eye can see. The silence of last night was not empty. There is a moment that comes in every divine process that God designs And it is the moment he has been building toward from the very beginning. It is not the moment of the promise being given. It is not the moment of the seed being planted. It is not the moment of the silent work being done in the hidden place, in the night season, in the deep and unwitnessed hours of God's sovereign activity in a human life. All of those moments matter. All of them are holy. All of them are necessary. All of them carry the fingerprints of a God who never wastes a single step in the journey he has designed for his children. But they are not the final moment. They are the preparation for the moment that God has had in view since before you were born. The moment of revelation, the moment of opening, the moment when what was hidden becomes visible and what was silent becomes a shayyin that cannot be ignored, and what was planted in the darkness finally breaks through the surface into the light. That moment is not coming for you someday in the distant future. That moment is now. I want you to understand what it means that God brought you to this specific place at this specific hour to hear this specific word. You did not stumble into this moment accidentally. You did not find your way here through coincidence or casual curiosity or the random movements of an unguided life. God, the same God who was working over your life last night while you slept, the same God who placed a mark upon you that the enemy can see but you have not yet fully discovered, the same God who did his deepest work in the silence when the noise of the world finally gave him room. That same God orchestrated the steps that brought you to this moment of revelation. Because revelation is not accidental. Revelation is always intentional. God reveals what he has done when the time has come for that revelation to produce its intended effect in the life of the person receiving it. Think about the process of dawn. The sun does not ask permission before it rises. The light does not wait for the darkness to agree to its arrival. The dawn comes because it was written into the order of creation that after every night, no matter how long, no matter how dark, no matter how cold, the morning would come. And when the first light begins to appear on the horizon, it does not appear all at once. It begins as the faintest line of illumination at the edge of the world, barely visible, easy to miss if you are not watching for it. And then it grows, and it spreads, and it fills the sky, and it touches the ground, and it reaches into every corner that the darkness had occupied, until there is not a single shadow remaining that the light has not addressed. This is what God is doing in your life right now. The dawn of revelation is breaking over your situation. The light is beginning to appear at the edge of what you can see and understand. And it will not stop until every area of confusion has been illuminated, every area of fear has been displaced, every question that the night season raised in your heart has been answered by the clarity of what God is now revealing. The disciples on the road to Emmaus walked for miles in confusion and grief and shattered expectation. They had believed, they had followed, they had invested everything in a vision of what they thought God was doing. And then the crucifixion had come, and the tomb had swallowed their hope, and they were walking away from Jerusalem with broken hearts and no framework for understanding what had happened. And Jesus walked beside them. He was present with them in their confusion. He was accompanying them in their grief. He was there, fully, completely, redemptively there, and they could not see him. Their eyes were restrained. Their understanding was clouded. Their pain had become a veil between them and the reality of what was walking right beside them. And then came the moment of revelation, and their eyes were opened. And they said to one another, "Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked with us? Did not something happen inside us? Something we could feel but could not yet name, something that was moving in our spirits before our minds had caught up with what our spirits already knew." Beloved, your heart has been burning. Even before today, even before this word reached your ears, something in your spirit has been stirring. Something has been shifting. Something has been rising. Something has been pressing against the surface of your understanding, trying to break through into full revelation. You have felt it in moments of unexpected peace that had no logical explanation. You have felt it in moments of sudden, inexplicable hope that arose in the middle of your most difficult circumstances. You have felt it in the quiet knowing that has visited you in the night. The sense that something is different, something has changed, something is coming that you cannot yet see but can somehow feel in the deepest part of who you are. That burning was not your imagination. That stirring was not wishful thinking. That was the Spirit of revelation doing its preliminary work in your heart, preparing the ground, softening the soil, widening the capacity of your understanding, so that when the full light of what God has done finally breaks through, you will be able to receive it in its entirety without being overwhelmed by its magnitude. God did not bring you through the night season to leave you in permanent confusion about what the night contained. He brought you through it because He always intended to show you what happened, to open your eyes to the miracle that was administered while you were sleeping, to the mark that was placed while you were unaware, to the deep and silent work that was being done in the hours when the world had gone completely quiet around you. Today is not an ordinary day in your life, no matter how ordinary it may feel from the outside. Before I close today, I want you to do something for me. I want you to place your hand over your heart. Right now, wherever you are, and I want you to say these words out loud. Say, God, I receive what you did last night. I received the mark. I received the revelation. I received the work you performed in the silence when I did not know you were moving. Say it like you mean it. Say it like heaven is listening. Because heaven is beloved, you came into this message carrying the weight of a night you did not fully understand. But you are leaving it with the knowledge that God was present in that night, working, marking, speaking, sealing, and that everything He did was done with your name, your future, your destiny specifically in mind. You are not the same person who pressed play on this message. Something has shifted. Something has been confirmed in the Spirit. Something that the enemy hoped you would never discover has now been brought into the light. And what God reveals, He also establishes. Do not let this word leave you the way ordinary information leaves you. Carry it. Meditate on it. Return to it in the moments when the darkness tries to convince you that nothing has changed and nothing is different. And heaven has not visited your life because it has. And now you know, if this message touched something deep in your spirit today, if God used these words to awaken something in you that needed to be awakened, please take one moment right now and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so that every new message finds you before the enemy does. And leave a comment below. Tell me, what did God show you today? I read every word.